The Earth Day Network has set the theme for Earth Day this year as Restore Our Earth. And since you have been working on a lot of upcycle and recycle projects for the LLDC Craft Studio, could you talk about your work and also what inspires you to do these projects?
So, I tend to see things in context of environment and Earth Day rather widespread. It's not like only recycle or upcycle. It is also to do with environmental impact or carbon footprint and those kind of things also that one should bring into day-to-day consciousness, as it were. Because this should not be just an abstraction for a lot of people, particularly karigars who otherwise might not be so sensitized about these issues. So, for example, later on we'll talk about the upcycle, recycle projects. But right now, for me, the biggest challenge and creative challenge has been how do we source raw material for our product range, which is created locally. Because in the bigger picture, I am keen on reducing that kind of carbon footprint. We have been sourcing material from all over the country and sometimes even abroad. But in the new perspective, I think it is not as appealing to me as a designer as creating alternatives using the local talent and raw material and opportunities and craft heritage. So for me that is very exciting, and people surprisingly don't connect the dots. That see, for example, I avoid traveling. This is before COVID, because I don't go abroad as often as I used to, because I realized that is at a personal level. But that is me as a person. Me as a designer has to go beyond me as a person. So that I started talking to people who give me design work about how do we create alternatives which are not only cost effective, but I also feel that have a smaller carbon footprint because they are sourced locally. And the response has been not just very good from the customers, but also from the artisans, because they are always innovating and meeting these challenges in which it may or may not be conforming to the lifestyle they need or they lead, but they are curious about what does it take to design things which are not their immediate local market or global in nature. So that has been a more engaging activity for me since last 2-3 years. Along with that, recycling whatever is not post-consumer, it's called post-consumer use, because you use it once, and then what do you do with the waste? So I've been involved with plastic recycle or something entirely new in which the waste, like cassette tape, which nobody uses it anymore. So the tape as a fiber for or yarn for weaving, and seeing what kind of material comes up and how do we find usages for it to which are conforming to somebody's idea of, let's say, how can I say, something which is like for formal occasions, so that they don't mind paying the price for it. Not just making tote bags for beaches, but also making evening bags for something which is completely unexpected, even for me as a designer, because I get to know of it only after it is woven, and then I get to see the fabric with different fibers, and then what is the appropriate use for it, or the highest possible appropriate use, let's put it this way. So that has been, or designing smaller things, hardware for the bag collection that we make from people who used to make knives and no longer can compete with the industrialized things. So what can you give? What can you do to give a contemporary relevance to that kind of skill base that is there already? Just tweaking it slightly, finding fresher use can give the skill, the sector, the fresh lease of life for a longer time than just letting it become irrelevant and even become extinct. So that has been my. I cannot go into details because it is too many. But subsequently, if it comes, I will be happy to tell you the case specific.
Sure. So you did mention wanting to source and create materials locally to reduce the carbon footprint and things like that. So in India and all over the world, there's been a lot of conversation about buying local and supporting karigars and craftspeople locally, about smaller scale industries and the value of the hand. How do you think that conversation is affecting karigars here, not only in terms of their livelihood, but also in terms of running a sustainable business or a sustainable practice?
See, if your innovation or the talent that you are trained to do as a designer can get them better returns for their skill, that is the first indicator. Then connecting further dots, if you can do something without polluting the environment, that is the second priority. Then highest possible return is the third thing, that it's no longer enough to find an average return. As a designer, you should find the highest possible return for the karigars, because then it's like a partnership for me, that they do their part very well. And then if my design can't get them better returns than what they are getting, then what would be the point of doing it? Sustainability is not just getting stuck at one level. It's also going beyond, because everything is costing more. So if your effort doesn't get you those kind of returns, I would think that it will not be a good solution. So my aim is but that is my challenge. That's not their challenge, because they have done their part according to what I have asked them. But if I can't get that return for them, and till they learn the ropes of that thing and then do it themselves, then I get free to do other things. So that has been the effort, collective as it were.
You mentioned working on weaving with plastic and weaving with cassette tapes and different materials that probably hadn't been explored by karigars here locally. Would you be able to tell us a little bit about their response to working with materials like this?
See, basically it means covering all stops, because if the raw material is cost effective or preferably waste, then it affects their earning, because then you don't spend so much for expensive raw material to start with. And secondly, then if you do something which becomes, let's say, raw material for a further, so for example, a woven piece becomes raw material for somebody who's good at making bags, then they would be interested in buying that as a raw material. So their effort or their expenditure for marketing it is reduced considerably, because they are commissioned to do that for a certain design. So we find or try to create that kind of network in which they start feeding into a supply chain, which otherwise the designers who are hungry for new material for bags will not get. So they have no problem paying premium for it, which pays for innovation and extra cost that goes into it, and eventually for their earnings. So at the raw material level, if you are buying the most cost effective, if not free raw material, or getting it and creating something which is plugged at the highest possible level, then the margins are good, and that I think is the real design challenge, not the product and how attractive they look. So I have started work on that, not on an individual capacity, but we want to create a collective in which younger designers get excited by these challenges, opportunities, and results eventually.
How do you think people would respond, or how do people, and when I say people I mean customers, buyers, how do they respond to upcycled or recycled projects like this? Because at the end of the day, people are looking for aesthetically pleasing products.
See, surprisingly, the resistance is not because it is upcycled. If it is smartly or wisely used, then they don't have problem. On the contrary, they actually feel that they are contributing to the environment cause and by paying good price for it. But the design, the quality of the merchandise, and everything has to be best possible. That otherwise it will not work. We are not into charity or distress sale. So that we try to tell the artisans that you have to do your best because we are damn well doing our best. And then we cannot do, after you have done your best, if you have not done, then we cannot do the best. That it's a partnership and commitment also, not just skill. So, and the going so far has been quite good. I mean, the market has been positive, sustainably positive. But it keeps us on our toes. So, and it's not one person's job, because then if there is a collective of younger designers who are constantly experimenting and bringing out new things, the breakthroughs and the systems attached to that breakthrough spawns more ideas for other designers. So there is a very good culture of sharing a breakthrough and saying that, I've done this, why don't you come and see it and see what we can do about it. So we have access to more than just one designer whose DNA matches with this kind of cause. Because if the designers may be talented, but he or she is not interested in working with the collective, it doesn't make sense then, because, and I'm not on an ego trip to have my signature in all the work.
Yes.
It's not the project. The project is to focus on the livelihood of the artisans, and the litmus test is that if their living standards have improved, they have. In addition to that, we are also looking into creating body of work of designs which are sensitive to the skill level. So if the artisan which is quite rare, it's national award winner, then we create design specific and sensitive to that skill level. But if he or she is not that level, then we are also trying to create a body of work which is compatible with their skill level, rather than expecting them to be higher than what they probably never achieve. So what can we do with such people? So at the drawing board level or the concept level, we sensitize designers by saying that we have to create something which is for every skilled people, which is distinct from high skilled design. So that way, I feel that this collective response to the need of the sector vis-a-vis the artisans and our sensitivity to it leads to sometimes very good relevant solutions.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.